Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. Today we are talking about gamified presentations. I am Ziska Strange. I am a curriculum and learning innovation designer for University of Arizona, and I'm joined by Keegan.
Hey everyone, my name is Keegan Longwheeler. I'm at the University of Oklahoma, and I'm an educational technologist in our Office of Digital Learning.
So today we are going to take you on an adventure. Your adventure actually is in three parts. You've already started part one of your adventure. You've started designing and thinking about gamified presentations. Part two is this adventure with Keegan and I. And the third part of your adventure is going to happen at OLC, where we see you there. So first, our goals. Our first goal is that you have the opportunity to reflect on your current position in the design process. I'm sure we are all at different points in that journey. Our second goal is that you identify steps that you can take to make your presentation more enjoyable for all audiences, which means considering some of the access issues and challenges that happen with gamified presentations. And then third, we would love that you would have the opportunity to identify what adventuring elements you have that you need to work on in the month or less month that we have left before OLC Accelerate. So first, I would love it if you guys would just take a minute or two and pause and reflect. In your presentation design, what is your biggest concern or challenge that you have right now? And whenever you have that challenge or concern formed in your head, if you would share out through the chats, we would appreciate it. So I'm seeing some come in. I'm seeing virtual audience, bringing them into the fold. Somebody else is concerned with timing. I'm there with you on that one. Doing a riff on an escape room, and it's hard to know how to design without any real idea of audience size. Yes. Technology platforms, more timing and audience size, scalability. Is it really going to be fun? We're all on the same page today. Figuring out how to shorten it. So yeah, a colleague of mine gave a talk and had all of this amazing stuff planned and realized that there's just not enough time. So yes, we are all on the same page and having the same concerns. And that's a big part of the battle, is realizing, number one, that we're all struggling with this. So, I mean, I'm doing the same thing. I just, I did a dry run of my gamified presentation and realized that I could possibly take up 2 hours if you let me. So today we're hoping to take those concerns and kind of give you a little peace of mind and a path forward. So we are going on an adventure. Keegan created this amazing narrative game, and we decided to reskin it, for lack of a better word, and teach you guys, well, not teach you guys, but encourage you guys to build a reflective practice and kind of show you a path forward with gamified presentations. So first, I'm going to challenge you to open a new browser tab or window, or grab your cell phone and go to https ac19keeganslw.com, and I'm going to copy that link and paste it for you, and not send it privately to Keegan because he already has it. So there's the link. If you can click on it there, or like I said, it's beautiful on your phone, and there we go. So once you get there, you should see a single card. The card will have a number in the upper left-hand corner. It will have a title of something that you need to go on your adventure, and it'll have some reflective questions. So once you read the card, think about your own answers, and we're actually going to go through each of the cards so you guys have a chance to share out and share out your own practices, your own ideas, your own questions. I will stop talking so you guys can get yourselves organized and pass it off to Keegan.
So first off, does anybody, like before we start with this kind of um, game that we're going to play, does anybody have any questions so far as to what you're doing? Um, Either on your phone, you either have the URL typed in or on your computer. But does anybody have any questions thus far? I'm going to get into just a little bit of exactly how this is going to work. I don't see any coming through chat, but if you do have some,
I got you.
please put them there. Okay, so how this is going to work is we're going to take 5 minutes, okay? And in the 5 minutes, what we want you to do is, depending on whatever card you want, so there are 6 cards that kind of represent 6 different stages in the design process that Chris and I think are very appropriate for this session type. So tackle that, what's on your card, tackle that piece that you see on your card. And in those 5 minutes, see what you can come up with, see what like sparks like your imagination into solutions and or anything else you kind of arrive at from your prompt. Now, like Chris said, we're going to go through each one. So you'll be answering one, but likely somebody else will do the first one and the second, and we'll go through that design process. So let's go ahead and start the timer. Questions, though, going once, twice before we start this.
All right.
All right.
Oh, apparently I'm not clicking right. There we go. 5 minutes.
We're at that 2-minute mark. Just jumping in to say we're at that 2-minute mark. About 30 seconds left. So wrap up your ideas. All right.
That's loud. I think I'm the only one who could hear it though.
It wasn't too loud on this end. So what I want to do now is what we're going to do is we're going to go through each of these 6 cards, like I said. If you had the map of planning as your prompt, what was it like that that you thought about when you were thinking about where your process starts in this design for your session, and what resources are available to you in that process? And feel free to jump in and chat, or you're welcome to unmute your mics and talk about it as well. And if no one did get that first card, does anybody want to provide their thoughts on that question?
I think one really cool resource was looking back at best in track and best in class and kind of thinking through what resources they provided and what resources I could build into my game. Angela said that she started by rereading the abstract and a visualization of the presentation, going through and kind of seeing how everything maps out is a great place to start.
Yeah, I know when I'm preparing for my, well, specifically for my OLC sessions in particular, that's one of the things I always have to revisit, just because sometimes many months go by between submission time and preparation time. So getting myself back on the trail using Angela's wording, I think is really nice.
We did the same thing when we were preparing for this, going through and like, okay, what do they need to get out of this, and how can we create a game? Katie said, I've been looking at the presenter services things and rechecking my slides and notes against the original proposal I submitted. I do the same thing, that alignment, making sure that what I've created is delivering what I said I would deliver.
Yeah. And I think sometimes that I think is sometimes harder than I even give thought to, because you grow and develop in that time. But thinking about how your topics as you promise them at the beginning, will be delivered for the conference. I always think is a really important conscientious decision. So
they're playing a version of Family Feud, so manipulating what we need for the audience to fit the game has presented more discussion for our group, which has been helpful. Oh, sorry, that came from Lisa.
That's awesome. And it looks like Katie posted a link for the presenter services too, in case anybody wants to reference that as well. All right, let's jump to our next slide, unless somebody. All right, so this one is very, very important, and we recommend, thinking about this on the onset of when you're putting things together is, you got to put on your boots of access. You got to think about how can you make your experience accessible for more than, just yourself, more than folks that are just sitting there, especially if you're thinking about how to engage the online participants too. So for folks that had number 2 card or people that want to jump in, what were your thoughts on that?
I think this is kind of where that preparing for the online audience comes in, and going back and checking your session listing to see if you are one of those people who are going to be streamed to online people. I know I struggled with that with mine as well, because we're playing a very minimal version of D&D in my presentation. So I had to think through, like, okay, if I have an online audience, how are they going to roll dice, and how big of a lift is that going to be for somebody on their computer with multiple tabs open and trying to navigate that way? So I'm not tagged for an online audience, but just in case I get tagged, I have a contingency plan in place. Like, okay, we're going to switch gears and go to this type of presentation where I can include the online audience. Jeremy's asking, is the online audience pre-registered? Will I know how many and who they are? And I know we have some smarter people in the room than me.
So I'll take that one. We do require virtual conference attendees to register for the virtual conference option. However, we do not require any of our conference attendees, be they on-site or virtual, to pre-register for the regular sessions throughout the conference. So you will not know exactly how many or who they are. There will be a session chair in your presentation room their primary reason for being there is to liaise with the virtual audience. So definitely plan on taking advantage of having that session chair in the room, who will communicate with that virtual audience on your behalf. They will hear your voice and see your slides. And then there'll be a chat room where they can ask questions, have a conversation, things like that. But my recommendation is, if you are slated to be a stream session, which I know Jeremy, yours is, as one of the best in track winners, please make sure that you have an option available for that virtual audience as part of your plan for your game, for your session.
And Angela said, though it's an online conference, not everyone is tech savvy, which is true for almost all online stuff. I try and think of plan A, B, and C for workarounds for those with access or tech issues if I have that type of participation. And yeah, and even if you don't have that kind of participation, here's a terrible story. I planned for 40 people in a presentation on gaming and ended up with 397. So, scalability is a big thing.
Well, and I think that's one of the things that like take this kind of experience, this storytelling experience right now that we're going through. Like we kind of built it in a modular fashion too, so that way it could be scaled in, if we had all 50 of the folks that were going to present on this in here, that we could still kind of have this discussion around each of these topics. So think about, yeah, what if you could divide up some of your content or some of your pieces, especially if you're going to interact with folks in the online spaces, what is that going to look like in terms of the chunked experiences of the game that you'll be rolling with in your session?
And even building in access for people who come in late or have to leave early, making sure that you're giving the links to your handouts and the information that people will need to get started at multiple points.
And I think one of the things too that I think is fun is like with this with these online cards too, one of the things that we were able to do is we're able to have alt text on all of these. So they have descriptive text for each of the cards to be read. If I was accessing this on my phone or anything, then that is also available for folks that, need or want that. Any questions about the access section? All right. Everybody gets to put on their boots. So we need to orient ourselves now in kind of like which directions we want to, drive the discussion and how the game kind of fits into that situation. So for those that had the compass of design, what what are you doing to provide guidance, to get folks centered, to point them in the direction of how the game and play is going to be, to help you yield better understanding for the concepts that you're after? Like, what are those kinds of things that that you're looking at doing?
And this was the card that I pulled. And even for mine, I'm like, I feel like I could do more. Dungeons and Dragons is scary for people. And the fact that that's what I'm modeling it after could really scare people. So even just talking about those things. And Druidin, I hope I'm saying that correctly. With an escape room concept, I think we have a benefit as it encourages exploration with minimal guidance. And that's very true. There's one more thing with escape rooms, though. Some people have never been through one, so they don't know that exploration is an option. So making it okay to poke around and to try things. I'm one of those people who have never done an escape room. I know that I can poke things because I've watched, yeah. But so giving people the freedom, like, hey, yeah, it's totally cool. You can bend this pipe cleaner. It's totally fine. Angela wants to come to my feet. It's called a Roll for Initiative. What Dungeons and Dragons can teach us about course design. Because I'm a nerd. Another thing that you can do is to provide ways for people to look into your design as well. So they're coming because some people might come because they're interested in the game that you're playing and how they can design it themselves. Oh no, it is streaming. So giving them a little bit of insight if you want to as a resource, telling them how you designed it and giving them directions on how to do it themselves.
And I think one of the powerful things too that feel free to break the fourth wall when you're talking about your game in the session, because I think showing folks the association of what you're doing and that kind of message that you're after also kind of demonstrates the thought process that kind of led to that point in your session. So, I mean, like how we're doing now, where we're talking about the game itself and the session, kind of as, I mean, they're together, but they're separate things. Like, feel free to do that. However you think is comfortable and would be definitely beneficial for the attendees. Any questions about the compass of design? All right, well, let's move on to the next section. So we have the pack of preparation. So this is probably going to be, a big part of your time is, getting, after you've gone through and you have kind of settled on, which direction you're heading. You got your boots of access on, and you got your map set laid out for what your session is going to look like. That preparation stage is key. It involves, everything from the little things of remember to pack your dongles and such to, if you need pieces that, need to be printed, or things that need to be made available online, or, any of that kind of stuff. What does that look like? So if anybody had anything, if you had card number 4 here, what were your thoughts on this?
Jeremy said, I got this one. A particularly scary thing for me is shipping. I will be bringing many game pieces, shipping, the timing, what if it's delayed, etc.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel you. I understand, because I've been in the same place definitely before, and I don't know what the best advice necessarily for that, other than, like, as early as you definitely can get those things in is definitely, that's kind of the way I'd go, but I understand that that's not always possible too.
There's also a shipping window, so I couldn't send them now. I don't want to send them 3 days before, so that's timing that out is kind of nerve wracking.
Yeah,
it is. I would check to see if there's a buddy that's going to be there early, because I know like some of us are going early, or talk to the hotel to see if they will hold it for you. And so you can just at least have a couple day window there.
Yeah, definitely talk to the hotel. I know that I normally go a little bit early, but you can always say, hey, I'm expecting a package. This is the day I check in, and typically they'll hold it for you, no problems. There's also a lot of great resources for like Amazon Prime right to the hotel. So if something were to kind of go amiss, that could happen. Plus, there's a Walmart like 45 minutes away if absolutely needed.
I've used Prime Locker in a pinch before to reorder game pieces for presentations. I had the joy of traveling during a storm, and my stuff was stuck, grounded in Stormland, and had to Amazon Prime myself some stuff, and I just wanted it in the locker, so same day. We also, Katie says, please view the ability to upload documents and links to your session page as a resource to help you with this piece. Yeah, I can't stress enough the gloriousness of a Google document with links in it. Especially when I'm giving my presentations, a lot of times people are asking questions. So I'm like, yeah, there's a great resource out there for that. I'll put the link in the Google Doc. And you can live update that Google Doc right after. Like, oh yeah, I promised them I would give them this, this, and this, and you can update that. And it stays updated. And as things change, you can continue to update it. Adam says, bringing props for our game, and similarly to Jeremy, making sure that we get them ordered in time before the conference. Yeah, and making sure that if you're bringing prizes, they don't melt in your bag. I know one of the presentations I'm doing, we have candy. And I'm nervous about the candy melting.
I think too, one thing that I'll add for the, like one of the things we wanted to do for this to make it simple and easy and fast is there's only one link that you really need. So even if your game or experience has a lot of pieces to it, being able to put those all behind one link is a good way to, get people quickly into the materials they need so they can access. That way you don't have to, give out a handout and then a link on the handout and those kinds of pieces. As much as you can, kind of keep that as simple as you can, especially for online folks too. I think that's kind of a big, will be a big, not requirement, benefit. Mm-hmm. That's the word.
Dorothy said, if it's something absolutely essential, make sure it makes it into your carry-on. which is like, yes, I'm totally bringing 200 D20s with me. This is not TSA problem. And Katie's, thank you, Katie. She said she shipped chocolate to the hotel before and it survived. Just give them a heads up that it doesn't need to sit on a loading dock. Yeah, it's candy poo, so it's hard candy. We'll be fine. Everything's fine. Florida in November is true.
Yeah. All right. Does anybody have anything else? Yeah, we should probably jump to 5 since we are there time-wise. So you are in presentation mode. And we've already been, discussing kind of these scales and pieces. I think one of the things that we kind of want to emphasize and, are curious about your ideas too, are, if worse comes to worse, like what are strategies that you could employ to still have your presentation and still get across the content you're bringing to accelerate. I'll give before you all can post your comments and stuff as well for this. I will say for ours, one of the things that we wanted to make sure is if the site was down for some reason, that kind of makes it hard to pass out the cards to you, which is one of the reasons that they're also included in the slide deck, because then worst case scenario, a little tweak to how we kind of go through this and we can still have that experience. But anybody with card number 5 that wanted to jump in?
We all want this question answered. How am I going to do this? I can tell you something that doesn't work is like nervously pacing in front of everybody when you were expecting 40 people and got almost 400. It's not a good strategy. I think one thing you can do that's available to everybody is checking to see which room you're going to be in and going and looking at the room. Rooms do change and can change, but like going in to just kind of get an idea of the pure scale that they're anticipating for you. And I haven't been in the app yet, but I know that there's in some apps, it will tell you how many people are interested in your presentation. So that could be a good place to look. And even like if you have a hashtag, oh, it's not on the app yet. But even just listening to people, like, hey, I'm giving a presentation on dodgeball on Thursday. You planning on coming? And kind of getting an idea.
That all sounds spectacular.
Angela says they're going to be using a board game format and being able to think about ways that players could be teams instead. That's one great way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, joining folks up when you have more than one is definitely that'd definitely be one of your easy scalables.
Katie said, my game could have varying numbers of humans on a team and varying numbers of teams. I'm confident about that part. My worry is more the number of prizes to bring. Everyone on the winning team should get a prize.
I think for that is the maybe, keep things small, because I think, stickers and or dice, for instance, like I think folks are just excited to get something a lot of the time. I mean, I know, yes, I would love, say, full-size candy bars or things like that, but I'd get, probably the same amount of excitement if I didn't know that full-size candy bar was the option and just, tiny one was, the mini, stuff like that. But yeah.
We did the same thing. Truden says candy, and team is people at a table. Yeah, I've done that before where I know I have 7 prizes. I'm like, okay, no more than 7 people to a team, because if you win, I need to make sure that everybody gets one. You could also just use candy and stickers. I'm not embarrassed at all to admit that I have fought very hard for a gold star sticker before. And they're like, what, $1 for a pack of 500? The person probably had so many, but I wanted to make sure that I got one because I'm one of those people. And again, Dorothy said that if you have too many people on a team for prizes, you can always get mailing addresses and mail them a prize. So they have one waiting for them when they get home.
That sounds awesome, actually. I haven't had that happen to me yet, but I need to win more prizes, I think.
Same. Virtual gold stars is another good one, yeah. I mean, even a high five. You know how rare it is for somebody to walk up to you and say, hey man, high five, good win. They might not be very excited in the moment that you just gave them a high five for winning, but still it's a recognition.
All right, we should probably jump to our last part of this,
Bring a stamp.
which is reflection time. So one of the things that, I think is great to kind of anticipate and plan for is like, what are the reflections that you want to inspire for your attendees, both during and then after the sessions themselves. So if you kind of have some of those things in mind, how do you make your game the best experience for that purpose? And anybody with card number 6 can jump right in if they want.
I think
So
OLC. Oops, sorry.
No, you're all good. I was going to say I was one of those card number 6 folks, and I think one of the things that, in this game that we're kind of playing that I enjoy is the fact that the cards are there after this session ends, and they'll be there for anybody that watches this recording. So if you want to sit down and do this exercise as well, like the content is lasting, and that's, I think, one of the fun things about making the web-based portions of these, because you have that flexibility too.
And I think OLC set up amazingly with all of these Twitter competent people, getting people to tweet out reflections. So I know that's one of the things that we were thinking about doing in our dodgeball presentation, was creating a hashtag for our presentation and then having people taking pictures of people with their reflections, or encouraging people to tag us with the hashtag on their reflections and their feedback.
All right. Any final takers?
Reflection's hard. It's the
is.
one thing that I don't think about whenever I design a game. I'll admit it.
Well, thank you for joining us for that particular piece. But I'm going to turn it over to Chris for another question or two.
So my big question for you guys are, what themes or ideas did you see during this little game that surprised you or inspired you? I can jump in first. One thing that inspired me is that I'm not alone in my concerns. It's nice to know that everybody else is struggling with this too. Angela said she's inspired by all the great options and shared by participants. And Trudian said that it made me realize that I need to be more intentional about access for virtual attendees. Same. The role of online audience, totally clueless. Same. And Amazon Prime, yeah, Amazon, I know it's taking over the world and people have opinions, but it is helpful in a pinch. And my last question for you guys, your typing fingers can't rest yet. One last question. What are your next steps on this adventure? What's that next big step that you have to take? think for me, it's building out that online access. Angela said, creating a modified mock-up of our game set. Julian said, getting started. Yes. Practice with colleagues to make sure that I think will work. Yes, I did that. I subjected my coworkers to my game.
Playtesting is very useful, and coworkers are even better for that purpose.
Poster and post-it notes organized into your categories, finding Amazon lockers, contacting the hotel, and have a plan for scaling up and scaling down. I have a lot of steps. Well, thank you guys for, playtest both in-seat and coworkers online. I think that's going to be my next step too, is seeing if I can get some of my amazing coworkers just to come on Zoom and play with me. So I'm going to pass it off.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to take a couple minutes to just go over a couple of logistical things about the space and address any questions that you might have from a logistical perspective. The room setups, primarily the breakout rooms have round tables for the attendees, so you can kind of plan on that for the on-site attendees. For the presenters, there'll be a podium and a head table for 3, and typically there will be microphones, depends on the room size. If it's a really small room, then those wouldn't be streaming, but they wouldn't have mics. But if in a normal size or large room, you'll have a mic. If you have multiple presenters, you might have to share, but there'll be a kind of a handheld mic that you can pass along. We do strongly urge you to repeat any questions asked by the audience using the microphone so that everyone can hear. This is helpful not just for the virtual audience, but also for the on-site audience from an accessibility standpoint. So that's really, really important. Also, as we already talked about, it's really important for you to upload your slides or handouts or that Google document with your links of your resources, things like that, to the conference management system so that your attendees can access that easily. Next slide, please, Chris. Thank you. So the rooms are set up for 16:9 slide format for your planning purposes. We recommend that you start and end with the session evaluation slide and encourage your attendees to submit the evaluations of your session. They'll be entered to win prizes. It seems like this audience, everybody loves prizes. So attendees who evaluate your session will be entered into a drawing for prizes, and also the presenters, you know, if you have the most number of evaluations, you'll get a prize too. So a little incentive there for getting people to submit evaluations for your presentation.
And we do have a question.
Sure.
Ruru asked, if our session is not listed as streaming, it's not open to virtual attendees, correct?
That is correct. So you'll want to check your session listing on the conference website. If it has the little satellite dish icon, it means it is part of the streaming program. If there's no satellite dish icon, then it is not part of the streaming program. We do have about 100 sessions from different types throughout the conference that are part of the streaming offerings. So, but we have 500 total, 500 plus total listings in the program. So about a fifth are streamed to the virtual audience. So you'll definitely want to check your session listing and make sure that you know whether you're streaming or not. If you are streaming, there will be a session chair in the room to ask questions on behalf of the virtual audience. The virtual audience and the session chair will all be in a chat room together. So that was a question previously asked in the chat earlier. And you'll want to definitely make sure as a presenter that you just check in with your session chair. The other thing to note is that we don't stream any video. So there's not going to be a camera in the room following you around. It is going to capture your slides, whatever you are displaying on your laptop and projecting to the screen, and also your audio. with that being said, keep in mind that your mics are live, and that the virtual audience can hear any sidebar conversations you might have with co-presenters or something like that. So just keep that in mind. And if you are not in a streaming room, well, actually this kind of applies to everybody, streaming or not, there will be hall monitors that are stationed in sections of the various hallways. So if you do need any AV assistance or IT assistance or anything like that, just poke your head out the door and grab the hall monitor there, and they will actually get in touch with me, and then I will pass that call for help on to our AV and IT teams that are roaming the hallways as well. So those kind of the rundown of logistical items. I'll be sending an email out later to all presenters later today, which is part 1 of logistical considerations for presenters. And it will include information on how to upload those documents to your session page, as well as other important information to help make sure that you're prepared for your presentation next month. And if there are any other questions, I am here to answer those. A big thank. I'm going to turn things over to Dorothy, who's our Presenter Services Chair for Accelerate 2019, to wrap things up for us today.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to say a big thank you to both Chris and Keegan for putting this together for us today, for Katie for hosting and having some great information here at the end that's helpful to everybody. And for everybody who joined us today, there was some great conversation in the chat there. Absolutely opened my eyes up too. It's my first time doing a gamified session, so this was like fabulous to see what everybody else is worried about, is working on, and needs help with. So, you know, we couldn't do this without everybody here today. So I really appreciate it, and I thank you for joining us today.
Thank you all. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, but also just a note, if you do have any questions that pop up later, feel free to email us at, I'm going to type the email address into the chat, but it's conference@onlinelearning-c.org. Thank you, Kristin. And we are always there to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you, and we look forward to seeing you all in Orlando in a month.
Woo.
Have a great day, everybody.